Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for today's discussion. I'm Kim Turner, as Ian mentioned, and I'm pleased to be joined by Clinton Bonner and Gareth Bradley. Clinton is the Vice President of Marketing at TopCoder, which is a talent network and crowdsourcing platform for data scientists, programmers, and designers. Their aim is to help enterprises execute on digital transformation initiatives, and TopCoder is a SPIGIT technology partner. Also joined, of course, by my colleague, Gareth Bradley, the Vice President of Product here at SPIGIT. Today, Clinton and Gareth will be sharing insights into leveraging crowdsourcing to accelerate the innovation process, from surfacing great digital transformation ideas through to development and impact. This is such an important topic, as we know it is often bandwidth and talent constraints that prevent great ideas from moving into execution. But before we dive in, a little bit of background about SPIGIT. SPIGIT enables organizations to engage employees, suppliers, customers, and partners in ideation to create and manage a pipeline of ideas. These are the ideas that translate into initiatives that drive not only digital transformation, but also new business strategies, new product development, and operational efficiencies. And SPIGIT enables business leaders to find the best ideas and foster a culture of innovation. As the largest provider of innovation management solutions, we have the privilege of serving some of the most influential enterprises in the world, and as well as the largest consulting firms. As such, we've launched more than 14,000 crowdsourced innovation challenges across many industries and geographies. This translates into a level of expertise that is highly valued by our customers. We know that innovation and digital transformation continue to be priorities for companies looking to evolve the way they interact with customers and ensure growth and competitive edge and even survival. Partnership with TopCoder is a major step in supporting organizations' abilities to transform digitally. With that background, I'll invite Clinton and Gareth to kick us off. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kim. This is Clinton Bonner from TopCoder, and as Kim said, Vice President of Marketing at TopCoder. Gareth, how are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks, Clinton. How is everyone? I hope they're all well and ready to go on this webinar with us. So over to you. I'm looking forward to what you've got here.
Absolutely, and I must say, an impressive logo slide there to start off, Kim. I mean, hey, 50 million Elvis fans can't be wrong, and that's quite a slide there of great enterprises working on your platform. And we are thrilled to be technology partners with SPIGIT. And I think as we get into this, everybody seeing it now or digesting this later, we'll see that the two platforms really hum together and do something quite great. So the topic at hand today is digital transformation. So let's get out of the gate and define it, and let's really discuss, at least briefly, like why should you care, right? So on the topic of digital transformation, you say, okay, well that shouldn't be too hard to get a good, clean, clear, concise definition around that. And then you start to search, right? Even on McKinsey's site, so not even Google, going to McKinsey first, there's nearly 3,000 different articles and different components that come up when we're discussing the words digital transformation. So it's like, okay, there's a lot of information out there. So how do we boil that down and make it just hyper relevant and really hyper concise? So we did some digging ourselves, and a couple that came up, and one's a bit more macro, and then one I think gets down to it with a bit more meat on the bones, if you will. The one from George Westerman there, at a high level, digital transformation represents this radical rethinking, basically to allow enterprises to use technology to change performance. So I look at that and I'm thinking, okay, to me, I'm not a jargon type person. You'll probably hear that, but by the time we get through this webinar, but that feels a bit jargony, and it feels a bit, still very high level. So we go to the crowd. So what do the crowds think about this? We go to Wikipedia, of course, which is one of the most famous sources of crowdsourcing and longest lasting for at this point. And this one starts to get a little bit more defined and looking specifically at, hey, you've got traditional problems, right? You got things that are traditionally ailing you, and people find a digital solution to replace the old solution. So it's not a way to make an incremental gain on an old solution or old technology, but it's actually a replacement of, or a brand new way to do it, but through a digital means, that becomes the digital transformation. So to me, that starts to become, again, a bit closer, a bit simpler to get our heads around. So then, when we thought about it just a bit more, saying, okay, how do we get this down to like 10 words or less, 5 words or less? And you can see on the screen there, if I'm thinking of digital transformation, in what is that, 5 words, I would say it's to uncover and deliver elegance. And I think it's a very polite and nice way of saying, hey, you've got to first discover, you have to understand what is ailing you, why is that an issue, understand empathy from a user's perspective, and then use digital delivery to change that, to deliver a much more elegant solution that had existed before. Usually it becomes much more, easy. It just becomes more of a joy to use. It solves a problem. It just does something in a much smoother fashion than people ever thought, could have existed. Hey, Gareth, for you, when you see the simple words there, anything you want to add to around, your ideas around digital transformation and what it means?
I think it's a great point, and I come from the Spigot angle, obviously, Clinton, and think about digital transformation, how we affect it. Simplicity at its core is probably the crowd. It's been one of the earliest concepts, I guess, we know as human beings, is that crowd mentality and how crowds come together. And I think that simplicity being moved into a digital world really plays to the strength of the crowd. But I guess in the context of this webinar and what you're saying, Clinton, it's maybe where we put the crowd, right, in the digital process. So I'm eager to see you unveil that from a TOPCODER point of view and how the crowd can work there. We obviously, at Spigot, we have that at the front end, and I'm really interested now to see how that collective knowledge, how that collective creativity can play to the simplicity and the elegance that you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a great point too. It's the ability. It is the placement of crowds. Like where can crowds and open innovation and where can they come in and out of what become development cycles and ideation cycles and delivery cycles, just to do things to make the process better and faster, so that you can deliver on this promise. And we will definitely get into that today quite a bit. So appreciate that, Gareth. So there's kind of this dichotomy, or this bifurcation of digital transformation, right? There's all the analyst events that you go to and everything else, and they're fantastic events where there's this promise, right? That's the left-hand side, of course. Two people just as joyous as it could be, and maybe it's sunset, maybe it's sunrise, I don't know, but they look like they're having a good time. But the promise of digital transformation is this delivery of elegance, and is this uplifting of either your employees or your consumers or your citizenry, and giving them back a heck of a lot more value. But the challenge that we see over and over and over again in the enterprise is that most people end up living on the right-hand side when they're doing large scale initiatives focused on what is digital transformation. So we'll talk about this a bit today, and we're going to bookend this a little bit later on when we talk about what our traditional looks at innovation funnels as well, and how we move through them with crowds. But I mean, sheesh, if there's one thing that I would want for everybody that is listening or consuming this later, is that understand that you don't have to live on that right-hand side. There is pain. There is real pain in doing things, getting things done in the enterprise. But there are ways to really mitigate that pain and really move a lot faster, so that your life as somebody within an organization who's really trying to move the needle can be a heck of a lot more like the folks on the left-hand side, and a heck of a lot less like the who knows, the sullen gentleman on the right-hand side. So a good little illustration there. And when we talk about the pain, right, exactly. Okay, so we're going to go to a polling question here, which is, we are discussing this pain. So how is it hard for you? So you're watching this right now. Maybe you're doing some digital transformation initiatives. Maybe you're just doing some large-scale projects in general that are digital-first projects. And we'd love to know from you, like by selecting one of the following. How is it hard for you? What hurdles do you hit? And of course, there's some answers there. We'll give you about 20 seconds to answer. All right, so we close that out, and okay, so we've got I'm not sure how the percentages add up. I'm guessing some people maybe answered more than once, but there are some clear favorites here that really kind of across the board, that ranging from just not enough support to, as you can see on the screen there, 50% saying people are just too comfortable and they don't want to do, they don't want to do the hard things, or maybe don't know how to go do the hard things. And, a big chunk of folks, the second biggest thing, we're moving too darn slow. And, with slowness too, Gareth, I think when things are slow, what tends to happen is that it's kind of a suck, in the sense that, like, the energy around things usually starts off really, really high, but then rather quickly, if there's not a lot of uptake right away, and there's not a lot of movement right away to get that ball rolling down the hill, in other words, you're moving too slow, it could really drain the energy and the direction of a team. Gareth, any thoughts on what we're seeing on screen?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think the pace of delivery and how that's impacted is critical. We certainly see it affect outcomes, and I know there's certain areas of a business, like a lab, where that can happen, right? Where there's a lot of energy when something enters, and then as you realize you don't quite have the fit, or you don't quite have the resource, then that's where you get into problems, right? So I do agree. I think pace is a real drain, and it does suck. It's a great word to use. Like, it sucks the life out of a project, which obviously puts everything at risk, I guess.
Yeah. So let's move back to the slide deck. But as we're exiting that poll, and so the question becomes, okay, we've identified some of those pains, and we hear it all the time from our customers, and it's like, well, is it worth it? One of the answers there was, well, some people just don't want to change, right? So they're not even willing to. That's a different kind of cultural problem, of course. But for those who do want to have that change, who do want to have that success, like, is it worth this pain? So we just plucked out one particular company who has done a remarkable job over the last, let's say, 5 years or so in digitally transforming their company top to bottom. Domino's. I'm a Long Islander. I grew up in New York, and there was 3 or 4 pizzerias, like really, really good ones, within about a couple of football throws around my block. So on Long Island, you're not gonna have too many huge fans of Domino's because of saturation of great pizza. Throughout the rest of the world, Domino's was always known as just cheap and fast, and hopefully it's okay. And they really flipped the script with a great advertising campaign with a rebrand they did that led out. But it wasn't just the advertising campaign. There was legitimate digital transformation, legitimate new experiences they delivered that are bulleted down the right-hand side, that they became like extremely good with mobile ordering, like made that very elegant, and everything from the upsell features to how you track your pizzas that are coming from the mobile order, to the loyalty system they built in. And now they recently put in delivery hotspots, so you could be, I think it's something like 300,000 spots across America, where it doesn't have to be an address. They just know where you are. So you're at a beach, you press a button, and blammo, your pizza magically shows up to you even at a public beach. And now they're doing things like Uber tracking of your driver, and they're starting to experiment, or already experimenting with driverless delivery, drone delivery, and things of that nature. So, we're sitting there being like, okay, they're a pizza company, right? They make, and they do more than that now, of course, sandwiches and everything else. And they're not a customer. They are not a customer of Topcoders, but we just peel them out because their story is so good. Because when we say, is it worth it? Yes, it's worth it, because if you take this on and head on, no matter what industry you're in, they are out innovating anybody else in that particular space, and not just in pizza, but many others just in food in general. So I just thought it was a really cool example, because hey, stats don't lie, and that chart, as Kramer would say, that's a gorgeous chart right there. Gareth, anything on Domino's that strikes you?
I think it's a great story as well, Clinton. If you think, naturally, where do these innovations come from? And I think it's a really great story of co-creation, both probably their internal people, their customers, their external crowds, their external cohorts and clients, coming together to think about how that digital journey works for them. So it's not just about, oh, hey, we've got a great idea, let's push it out. Some of this stuff you listed is things that people have come to expect as best in class when they're dealing with mobile, or when they're dealing with delivery, or things in transit. And that really is a win if you think about how you engage people in that transformation journey. For me, It's tapping that collective intelligence, and it's driving the ideas into the business. The chart doesn't lie, as you say, Clinton. These ideas have gone to market, and look how they've impacted the business as a whole and the competition as well.
Yeah, I think even one of them, one of their commercials, I think it featured a Kardashian. I forget. I think it was, and I remember that the person was ordering the pizza via emoji. A couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago now, like just 18 months ago, just hitting an emoji and blammo, their pizza's showing up. So it's the ability to also start to talk to next gen users as well through digital transformation. So really interesting stuff happening with Domino's. So when we look at this big topic, and it is a big honking topic, we try, just like getting the definition down to a couple of keywords and focusing on delivering elegance. We're saying, hey, listen, there's 4 key things you really ought to focus on. And if you do these well, then you're at least on this nice path where you have a vision, you have a goal, and a way to get there. So number 1, which will certainly those on the those who are listening who know Spigot well, this is where you guys rock and roll. You're really strong at this. Is the ability to source genius from everywhere. Ideas and great concepts, they are everywhere. So not just internal, not just within your 4 walls, but within your user base, within people, within near field users, within people that you've never met. There is genius everywhere. So the ability to tap that genius, source that genius, but then also refine and co-create with that genius is really foundational to accelerating this kind of transformation like we're talking about. The second thing is that you really have to have an ability to experiment rapidly. I think, again, going back to the stats on the polling question, you see a lot of people like, hey, we're going way too slow. You could have all the energy in the world, but if you can't get out of the gate and get out of the gate with some strength and start to get yourself into a really healthy cadence, the best laid plans and the best projects are likely going to die in the vine, or just be so significantly late that you are no longer first to market, or it's not even a significant innovation by the time it gets to market. So the ability to rapidly design and have a design first mindset, absolutely critical. The third one is really just having a way, right? So having a system in place, having a program, having a governance, and just having it structured so that you can get legitimate ROI and become predictable with your innovation practices. And I know people always talk about the front end of innovation being rather fuzzy. I would directly challenge that and say some of the things we're going to show you later could flip that on its head and say it does not have to be fuzzy whatsoever if you put math on your side and you put basically just put the amount of chances on your side for success, and we'll see a bit about that later. But really having a way and governance is really important. The fourth one is to enable, and that one's about 2 things. Having a system is part of enabling, but also for me, Gareth, it's also about culture. Enabling a culture so that they could try, so that failure is okay because it's a chance to learn, that you can do testing and iteration and rapid POCs and rapid discovery, but you have to enable that, and you have to enable that on a cultural level. So Gareth, any of those strike you as one you want to really hammer on, or anything about culture that you want to add some flavor on here?
Yeah, I think the culture is a great word, and it's certainly something we've been focused on recently at Spigot. Culture's become organic, right, when it comes to innovation, and I think you've led that in the right way there, Clinton. When we think about culture, we don't immediately associate it with an innovation effort, with a lab, or with crowdsourcing, or with design and build, or lean startup even. It's not something that's calling out. But actually, when you start to lay this out in a linear or in a cyclical format, maybe even, you do get to culture. To affect the change in these different areas, and actually, importantly, to get something out with that design first mindset and get it out to market, to be able to execute, that is intertwined with the cultural element. Think about how you engage people, how you build that, as you said, the remove the fear of failure, put the safety net in, and allow people to try and test and build things, even to collaborate in a different manner than they've done before. I think that safety net and how that wraps around the execution piece is key. Enablement obviously comes across different parts of the cycle. And certainly from our point of view, we're hearing more and more that our clients are saying cultural innovation is our number one priority. When they actually go to their crowd and when they look at engaging them in innovation, we hear that come out loud and clear. It's what we're doing it for. We're looking to change innovation at the ground level, which leads into this kind of effort here of a system first, then the execution, and then measuring it in market.
Yeah, well, that
long way of saying I agree, Clinton. Right?
That's okay, but it does make a ton of sense, and I think it's really interesting to look at through the lens of Spigot that's focused on that early stage ideation and refinement, and then into TopCoder, which becomes the execution part. But again, all through crowds. And so speaking of crowds, I think a good segue to the next slide. So we certainly, our two platforms are powered by crowdsourcing, right? So open innovation at our core, powered by communities, powered by crowds. So we do want to rotate a bit into the role of crowdsourcing inside digital transformation. So just like earlier, where we want to say, well, let's define it. There might be some folks on the call that don't have a good grip. So let's grip on it just yet. So let's quickly define it and say, okay, well, what the heck is crowdsourcing, right? So the traditional definition is the ability to go outside your four walls for what is a task or to get some work accomplished, or things that would traditionally happen on the inside, but now you could, now you could reach others on the outside who could speed it up or do it better or just get it done. So there's different examples out there, of course. Everything from, Rotten Tomatoes is just crowd voting on movies, and if you achieve like a 90% fresh rating, well, that movie's probably going to be a big success, because again, that's kind of the 50 million Elvis fans can't be wrong, and I think a lot of people know Rotten Tomatoes. But and this is just a smattering, but there are so many players like Verblio top right. They focus on content, copywriting, blog writing, and they use a crowd to get it done for you. Just skilled writers you could tap on demand, good people over at Verblio, and then you have Tongle on the bottom down there. Tongle does video production commercials for brands like Lego and Playtex and McDonald's. So great brands using crowdsourcing to get extremely high quality video production done, get commercials done, and get more done. And obviously we have Spigot. I think most on the call understand Spigot, and we'll learn a bit more about TopCoder as we go on as well. So, but as it in general, that's kind of what crowdsourcing is very generally. We'll move on to some more specifics. So just going into, like, for those who don't know, like, what is TopCoder? Again, brevity being the soul of wit here, TopCoder is the simplest way to access and execute with incredible digital talent. We are a community across the globe, over 1.4 million members who are designers, developers, and data scientists and QA testers. And we're also a platform. We're a platform that makes it easy to get to the talent, work with the talent, and get executables, get things, digital assets created from this great talent pool. And again, it's all about efficiencies and speed and simplicity and getting to good results a lot faster, so we all can move faster, we all can achieve more. So that's just a little 2 seconds on TopCoder. Next slide, please. So I think better than me telling you about how great we are, et cetera, I think it'd be very much more impactful to show you some of the work we've done. And this is right in the realm of digital transformation work. So we'll go into a little bit of a quick deep dive here on some fairly recent work we did with Macy's.com on a website redesign. So I had the great fortune of being down, and again, I live in Connecticut, but I'm a Long Islander by nature. So I was down in New York City. I was at their flagship retail store. That if you've ever been down there during the holidays at Christmas time, it's wonderfully done up, fantastic store. And actually, above their retail store are their offices, are some C-level suites and some great offices. So we're in a meeting in Manhattan, and Macy's says, "Hey, listen, we know that our main customer, most of our customers are very sales motivated. They see a sale, it's Labor Day, it's a holiday sale, and that's when we see a big spike, and then we see that energy dissipates, and we have to kind of wait to the next sale." So they obviously are like, "Hey, we want to change that. We want to change that through a better experience, a digital experience." And the website is still the most powerful. It was a fantastic, powerful asset for Macy's and Macy's.com. So they wanted to do a new rethink on things that they thought would move the needle, including like fashion curation, personalization, digital loyalty, and things of that nature. So people would come back over and over again and not have to wait. They'd be proactive in how they would approach something. They'd be proactive because they're there to build an outfit, or they're there to, complete a journey that's tied to loyalty points, as opposed to waiting for the next sale to come along. So we took that, and then, in kind of true top coder fashion, what we do is we take the need and we create a spec. We put it out to our platform. We do that with the customer and for the customer. So it's nothing that the customer is never left alone. This is happening with and for you. And we put it out to our community. In this case, our design community, the great talent that we have, the UX talent and UI talent out there. So the short of it is, without saying, okay, here's how the sausage is made, that's fine. But what about the actual beautiful sausage that got done? 2 days of 48-hour design exploration, 14 top designers from across the globe delivered over 100 unique screens to give them inspiration right away. Like, get out of the gate with this idea with an incredible and intense a sense of achievement and moving forward and moving really, really fast. So we'll go through just a couple of those screens. And it's, kind of nice to see. So here's a splash screen from the first place winner. This is just showing some of the elements they worked on, again, within 48 hours. So you can see the type of talent that's coming in there. You start to see elements of gamification and custom curation, and of course, a really high fashion sense. This was what would be the brand new Macy's.com, homepage, if you will, from this competition. So starting to see how you could right away get into fashion delivery, fashion curation, and just a much juxtapose this experience versus hitting a site where it says like 40% off because it's Labor Day, right? So kind of just close your minds and think about the experience you get if from one, and the actions you drive, if that's what your site is saying, versus a site that is delivering a more elegant digital experience, which is what they're after. And as we go through these, we could rattle through these, maybe 10 seconds a piece now. You can start to see some of the layers of personalization and the ideas of pairing things, like using AI to automatically pair things with outfits as concepts that came up. And here was a really good look at some of the ideas on loyalty and gamification, and how to start understanding shopping preferences and how to move customers through journeys so they're buying from you, buying more often, and really just have a better sense of just a better tie to you as a brand. By the way, all these screens so far that I just showed to then were from the first place winner. There was lots, I think 20 some odd screens they developed themselves, or 15 screens. The rest of these, which we can go through, are other variants. So again, there was 14 top designers going at this in 48 hours. And you can see here, this was a different way of saying, okay, well, let's gather your interest before the first time you do come to Macy's.com. Profile creation, understanding of what you actually like. This one was demonstrating the ability to really either use AI or have more robust, like, fashion chat that was available. And this one was showing the idea of doing like, custom kind of closet curation and custom wardrobe. So it's like, hey, you have a special occasion coming up. How do you work through a site, a brand new site like this, and start to build wardrobes for really specific occasions? Again, thinking through the experience of coming in just for a sale versus coming in because you have a special thing happening. You're going to a special event, so you're going to hit Macy's.com because this is the best place to do fashion curation. 180 in terms of a value proposition. So that was just a quick visual case study of a Macy's.com redesign. We do lots of that. We do lots of, we do code, POCs, we do data and analytics, we do testing. A lot of talent out there, but we want to show one that was really preaching to the idea of moving rather rapidly. So, hey, Gareth, before we dive into this, which I think is going to be, really cool to share with the audience, anything hit you when we're looking at those Macy slides, and anything that's coming up from any of the main topics we talked about earlier, speed or just support, anything coming back to you?
Well, I certainly think, Clinton, that is a testament to how quick you could move. I imagine a company like Macy's, an organization like Macy's, where they're trying to do that in the traditional manner, traditional methods, using internal staff. It's difficult, I think, to imagine that happening. Sure, it can get there eventually, but as we said earlier on, pace just, ebbs away from projects like this. And looking at the quality of those designs and the innovation that's in there, you can see how cutting edge that is. And to me, that really just plays to the points you're mentioning, Clinton, about pace, about execution, about bringing fresh thinking to the party. For the benefit of the organization. That's a great visual testament to what can be done.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the benefits of working at TopCoder. It's nice because we get to show off some visuals like that, and visuals obviously, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it really is about that pace. Now, they're not final designs, we understand that, but to be able to kick things off and use that design first or design led innovation, it's really powerful, and it's not reserved for the biggest of the big, or the folks that have to take on gigantic agency contracts. No, like through crowdsourcing, we'll show you this in the next couple of slides, through crowds and through platforms like Spigot and TopCoder, that you could have that for really all size teams in the enterprise and distribute it to your entire organization rather seamlessly. It's which we think is a good thing. So we did say earlier, Kim said it earlier, and then at the onset, I just second that we're extremely excited to be technology partners with Spigot. Spigot on the left-hand side of the slide. When I think of Spigot, I believe you guys actually provide and deliver inspiration. Like, you guys give your best in breed. So we sought you out to form this partnership because the way in which you guys handle ideation and refinement and co-creation, and you help all these great organizations really go to their internal crowds, all their employees and external crowds, and find out what actually should be built, right? Find out what really matters and what's going to move the needle. You guys have, in my opinion, the best in breed platform, and that's why we're thrilled to partner with you. And that's what you guys do great. At the end of your guys' where your team finishes, Gareth, with Spigot, is like, hey, you found out lots of different concepts. You went through, you refined, many people had the ability to put opinions into it, and what comes out is confidence, right? Like, hey, this is the really best idea. This is the top concept. It's vetted by the business. It's vetted by the consumers. We can produce this, whatever it might be that checks the box for any of your customers. But I've seen Spigot challenges that when they get done, the level of confidence on what it procured is extremely high. Like, people feel extraordinarily confident that, hey, that is what we're going to go to market with. And then where the Spigot platform ends, if you will, right? That's right now is like, hey, that great idea came out. It's kind of exactly where the TopCoder platform begins. We'll do sometimes like business ideation or like technical ideation around like a data science problem, very different from what your platform does. But you're crystallizing ideas, and our platform is an execution engine. So it could flow from one side, the Spigot side, directly into the TopCoder side, and that's a piece of technology we built between the two platforms, so it does exactly that. So the idea could transfer from platform over to platform with no delays, no ramp, and a crystallized idea that is going to be a digital solution can go right into, in a matter of days, right into a design exploration and be followed up maybe 10 days later or so into POC, so UI prototyping, into code, so that we have this way to go to take two amazing platforms, fuse it together with a bit of technology that your team and our CTO worked on together, and take what was two separate platforms that do really good things, put it together, and actually do something that the market has not seen yet, to go from crystallized idea right to rapid execution in the front end, design and development, and deliver something brand new to the world. So Gareth, I know I said a lot of words there. What's your take on this fusion between the Spigot platform, the TopCoder platform, and what it provides to the market?
I think some great points, Clinton. Obviously, we've worked together, right? We've actually done some of those things that Macy's did, and we've been working together as two organizations to get to that. It's been a great experience for us, and I've certainly, really crystallized what I think on this. And it's about, from Spigot's perspective, managing the life cycle of the idea. Mm-hmm. So we really, as you said, we go out, we engage crowds, we build crowds, we maintain them, and we get the collaboration happening so that the assurance and the governance is there around those foundational ideas. We move them through processes, we prioritize, obviously, in the most efficient manners, so that when we get to a point where traditionally teams would move to being ready to incubate, to work through the early stages of taking an idea to market, you're working with an assurance that Spigit's given you that. We're able to manage that process for you. And I think when it comes into fusing Spigit with TOPCODER, it's a natural extension. So it's taking that management process that Spigit can give you and track across the life cycle. It's doing that, but now TOPCODER is bringing in the execution piece. And I think that more than anything, it just shows how it supercharges things. Being able to take something off the system into real life, into iterations, into quickly seeing what it could look like and what it could do. That you can't buy that. Obviously you can, but you can't buy that kind of that readiness and how it can actually change the paradigm. The teams, as you said earlier on, where they struggle with pace, where they don't quite have the support from the business internally. And now they've got a battery of ideas that have been through a process that's tight. They're now ready to go, and they can move with your crowd and your platform into iterations in a safe manner, in a controlled manner, all with that management around it.
Yeah, which I think I love the piece that I failed to mention that you bring up too is the managed service and also just the expertise around your platform. And then as the idea comes over to the TOPCODER side, there is additional expertise, and there's resources that we have a role within our community called the co-pilot, and this is for all lack of to make it simple, it's like a virtual PM. They are your virtual PM on platform, and they're gonna take your hands, first and foremost, make sure you're feeling good and comfortable, but they're going to look at your idea and they're going to ask, certain technical questions. They're going to ask about some tastes and things of that nature. If we're doing design, make sure we're getting the mood boards right. And they're the ones who actually put the work and shape the work on platform with and for the customer. So it's not like you're thrown over to a wall, or not at all thrown over the wall, and then you hit a platform where all of a sudden you've got to do all this work that's really foreign to you. It's really the opposite. It's making it quite simple and elegant so that you've got expertise on both platforms, and as you move over and get shepherded over, the expertise changes because the next thing that has to be accomplished changes. But there's experts on both sides of this equation, just helping the customer get to the point of a great idea, and then the execution of the great idea through various stages. So we are extremely excited about what the future holds for this partnership, for sure. I know we just have a couple of more slides, and we talked about this at the onset. I hinted a little foreshadowing that there would be a look at a left-hand side and a right-hand side. And before, we had the two happy people jumping up on the beach, and that was the left-hand side, and they were super happy. And then the kind of the guy in the agony, the dichotomy over there, who's going through the pain of digital transformation. So let's flip that now. My belief is just I've been with TOPCODER, working inside digital innovation for over about a decade now, and most companies, unfortunately, are living the pain that is actually the left-hand side, right? That's where most companies are living. They cannot see enough. They don't get enough discovery at the very onset. It takes a long time to either evaluate, to start design exploration, whatever those processes are, and they're slow to the prototyping stage through as well. And at the end of that, it's not a great word when we talk about strategy. Like, hope is not a strategy, but the bottom of the left-hand side, 6 to 18 months later, and you have maybe one or maybe two concepts that have come out, and you've got to hope that you kind of guessed well. You got to hope that you weren't slow enough. Those are really not positions of power. We talked about flipping the script on ROI and becoming predictable with how you innovate and how often you innovate and how predictable you can be to say, yeah, I could predict we're going to have success this year with at least some of these. And why some of them? Because the set of how many you're going to try, it became a lot larger. You're getting maximum discovery. You're getting lots more into the funnel. You have the ability through the Spigit platform to really refine what is the best in breed ideas, get them to a point of hyper confidence, like super confident. Those are winning business ideas. comes right over to the top coder at that stage, and we're talking about design and rapid prototyping. And and we're putting 30 to 90 days down there. Depends on how complex something might be. I mean, we're bringing customers through prototyping in sometimes less than 15 days from the start of an idea. It just depends on complexity and how far they want to go, all the way to a working MVP, all the way to production, et cetera, et cetera. But it's kind of like, where do you want to live? Like, do you want, and if you are on the left-hand side, then you're probably that person on the bus. And what if you can move much closer and pretty easily, actually? There's work there, don't get me wrong, but what if you can move over to the right-hand side and have more chances, take more swings, see more options further down the life cycle, and also do it on budgets that just make sense for innovation and really have actual, really good ROI. So one side is hope as a strategy, and one side is, hey, we're confident in that we can deliver a cadence of successful POCs, MVPs, and then from there, of course, that's a precursor for what you bring to market. Gareth, anything on this slide that you want to, highlight or discuss from your vantage point?
I think you come back to the word again, pace, right? That's for me critical. You build a culture. You build the safety net, as we said before. That remove the barriers, break out of the standard operating models here. Get the culture right. Pace comes with it. Pace generates results for me, Clinton. That's pure and simple. You can move quicker. You figure out whether it's right or wrong, and that's where all the assurance that comes before it in these funnels really does help. I love the term pace. I think that's exactly how you can frame this for transformation.
Yeah, I agree that it's a powerful word. So, we've talked about this quite a bit, so I won't spend too much time on this one, but we between our two teams, we kind of affectionately call this the racetrack. Maybe we should call it the pace track. I'm not sure if that's a very, very bad punny joke there, but but the simple idea of just if there's one thing to call out, I think for me, it's the simplicity that, hey, we've built the API. It's a simple hook back into the Spigot system. It brings the idea package in the way that you guys set up staging. A customer hits a certain stage within the Spigot lifecycle, if you will. The API hits, there's a call, it brings the package over to the TopCoder platform, and with immediacy, another expert is diving into that idea package and starting to poke at it in a good way to get their head around it, to prepare the work on the next platform. We talk about like platform innovations. Now, I don't like to get too wonky, and I don't like to overuse the terms of platforms, but this literally is kind of there is that thought of like platforms that then birth other platforms, or the combination of platforms that create a brand new value chain, brand new value proposition that did not exist previously because it just couldn't exist. And this is really a good example of that. So I think for the audience, the one thing to take away is that it is seamless, and there are people. There's, yes, we're doing it through technology. That's great. We love technology. We're using APIs, all that. But there's also operations. There's also people and experts on both sides that are there to take care of it and make it a seamless transition. Again, Gareth, if there's anything you want to add to this, or if not, we could go to the next slide. Up to you.
I'm good, Clinton. I think you covered it all. Okay,
next slide then, please. And this is just a typical, like a Gantt chart. Anybody who's inside technology, just looking at, okay, what's it typically look like in terms of maybe a singular engagement or a singular idea. By the way, we should say the whole purpose would be that you don't have to go one at a time. You could bake out 6, 7, 8, 10 different ideas from Spigot challenges, arrive and say, hey, these 8 are really strong ideas, and then move them over in parallel to TopCoder and actually start designing all 8 of them at the same exact time, and still get all 8 of them to like a POC level in 20 to 30 to 40 days, depending on complexity. So how many, the volume you want to experiment with is wholly up to you, the customer. But if you were doing it one at a time, or saying this was one of the 8 that might be happening in parallel, this is pretty much a timeline you could expect, where it would come over to the platform. It would be prepared on the TopCoder side on our platform, and then within 3 or 4 days, we're launching the first design work, where you could expect somewhere from 4 to 8 to maybe 12 or maybe even 15, just depends. Quality top designers, agency level designers working on your work and giving you multiple rounds, an iterative process, and delivering back to you brand new experiences that you haven't seen just yet. You pick your winners from there, and then you move right into UI prototyping. So you get to a POC and you move into a rapid prototyping phase. So again, depending on complexity of how many bells and whistles, how many features are we expressing through design and through the prototype, 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, you've got your POC. I mean, how much different is that? What can you actually do in 4 weeks or 30 days in a traditional enterprise versus this mode of execution? And by the way, let's not forget that you took a great idea into the system, because a confident idea, because you've already using Spigot. We think it's just, again, back to pace. We think it's night and day different. I know we're coming to the end. So we talked earlier about McKinsey and looking at searches, and there's lots of things out there. So and we said, why does it matter? Should it matter? Does it matter to you? Should you go through this pain? Well, this is another one of those stats don't lie. This just came out, I think, 2 or 3 days ago. 5-year McKinsey study, 300 enterprises. Those that had a design, the TLDR is those that have a design-led, design-first way of doing innovation. The numbers are there, kind of the orange, yellow, 32% more revenue, 56% more total returns to the shareholders. Those are gigantic deltas between the companies that are using a design-first way of going about this versus those that really don't understand design first and are not doing those things. And we understand. I mean, I think, Gareth, you could chime in, of course, too, but design first can be hard or can be difficult for many people to get around if they don't know what to do, and maybe they can't afford paying an agency to always do design first with them. It's too expensive. But that's kind of the whole thing is, this is a democratization of, hey, we can do crowdsourcing ideation, crowdsourcing refinement through Spigot, design-led experiences and design-led innovation through TopCoder and into rapid POC. And if you're doing it, well, the stats do not lie. They are what they are. You'll have more success with more innovation. And of course, that ties into most companies' digital transformation initiatives, kind of tying the bow back onto the topic of the day. Gareth, anything here that stands out for you, stats-wise or just feeling-wise?
Yeah, well, I totally endorse this, Clinton. I think it's a great way to frame the overall discussion. Certainly, our Kellogg study, Kellogg Business School study last year, further endorsed it. That this is a tried and trusted method, right? We're not talking about estimates. I know I've certainly heard vendors in this space talk about estimated benefit, right? Which is not what we're talking about here. Let's be clear, Clinton, right? We're talking about actuals. Spigot was talking about actuals last year, the end in Q4 and obviously into this year. It's that Kellogg study really brought it to the fore. And I think when you see this and the quote you've got on the screen, that's a takeaway for me, that we really have this as a tried, trusted discipline that works. As you said, Clinton, you don't need a big retainer, right? Big fat retainer, big contract. No, this is about being agile, moving at pace, and creating a culture where you can get to market. And I think it's a great way to summarize this whole discussion, Clinton.
Yeah,
nice job.
No problem. And next slide, please. And I'll just go into. I had the privilege of going out to Ignite, which is, and I think that's actually gonna wrap up our section there. But I had the pleasure of going out to Ignite, which was in the San Francisco area last year, or in San Francisco, which is your team's flagship event, really customer focused event and platform focused event. You guys put on a wonderful show that was really great. And I loved your CEO, Scott Raskin's message, and everything about the theme was idea to impact, right? And that was your team did a wonderful job of making sure that was the core throughout the entire engagement. Everything you saw, everything on stage was idea to impact. And that's when we were kind of just getting going with the ideas of, hey, I think we could combine these two platforms and really do something kind of special here. And really pleased to say that Hey, that was back in March. Now we're at November 1, and we're sitting here today saying, hey, this is open. This is the API is there. This is open to the world, and customers are starting to enjoy the fruits of these two platforms coming together. So I think we're into Q&A next, right? Yeah, there we are. So there we go. So I know we have about 6 minutes. So why don't we use that for some Q&A? And so Ian, if there are things out there, or Kim, that the world wants to ask us, let's hear what they say.
Absolutely, Clinton, thank you so much. It was a great interactive dialogue, and so glad to have the audience participate in that as well. A few questions did come in, and we'll start with those, but if you are listening in the audience and still have a question, please feel free to enter it into the chat box now. The first question that came in was, with TopCoder, do I pay hourly for the work of the designers and coders and so on? Doesn't it add up pretty fast?
Sure. So there's a quick answer here to save time, and obviously anybody that wants to chat later, that's love to. That's the point of these exercises, to build awareness and get some interest going. But no, we're not based in hours. We don't apply hours to how we do work. So we'll look at units and give flat rate pricing. So it's think of it this way. There's going to be guaranteed outcomes for flat rate dollars, and it's extremely transparent. Again, happy to talk to anybody about that if they want to go further. But before you would enter an engagement with TopCoder, beforehand what you're paying, and with the outcomes and the way that our model works, we think it's really, the appetite for the modern consumer. They kind of like things that way. Flat rate, simple, and very clear that you're paying X to get Y as an outcome. And we think we know the market's telling us that there's a great appetite for that kind of transparency.
Excellent. So a question coming in from a Spigot client that I'll direct to you, Gareth. For a Spigot client, how would I adapt my approach to leverage this partnership?
That's a good question. We've actually, as I alluded to earlier on, we've done this. Clinton and I have overseen a project we've run. We have clients going down that path already, and what we've learned is we have small adaptations to our process inside of the platform, and also the way in which we frame certain questions and challenges from the business side inside of Spigot. So it's actually something we've proven out, something we know the limits and the boundaries of, and something we'd be happy to work with anybody who's interested from the Spigot side already on kind of honing that. It's just essentially changes to the process and maybe some of the capture elements, but really simple, really easy to do. And the great news is that API allows us to hook the technology up. So it's not a manual effort there. We can bring things across and hand them to Clinton and his teams.
Great. So there's another question that came through related to, I think, the topic of pace that you both have been talking about, which was, can you speak a little bit more about the Spigot funnel, and do you use iteration, or how do you make sure that goes faster?
That one's to me, Kim, right?
Yes, to you, yes.
Yeah, okay. Clinton, you might have an opinion on this as you've seen it in action as well. So obviously from the Spigot side, we rely and we do push an automation approach. It's automation with control. So that means that ideas can move quicker than they do in a traditional sort of suggestion box or maybe more rudimentary post-vote and comment tools. Spigot uses the crowd to move the ideas quickly through a process that you define. Through some traditional methods like voting, through more advanced methods like pairwise voting, side-by-side comparison, and even predictions, so crowd-based predictions, to get you to a point where instead of dealing with 300, 400 ideas from a semi-large crowd, you're now down to maybe 15 or 20 that the crowd are telling you work. They see it in the business. They can see how it could be taken out to market. Spigot uses automation to get you there. So its funnel is honed that way, but allows you to intercept ideas where you need to as you move down the funnel. And I think that's, Clinton, maybe you have an opinion. That's where obviously the speed and the pace comes in, moving quickly through that funnel, but with the governance around it.
100, yeah, for sure on the Spigot side, and then I think it'd be good to illuminate as well that on the TopCoder side, It's the pace is stuck to, if you will, and the pace is dictated, is the better way of saying it, by time boxing the work. So the work hits the platform. If it's a small design piece of work, 5 to 7 days. If it's a larger or mid-size, 10 days. If it's a really larger piece of design work, maybe it's 12 to 14 days. And that has all the iterations, the checkpoints, and the delivery elements all baked in. So it's just it's kind of like t-shirt sizing, like how much work is there? Cool, let's time box and put parameters around that. And then when we run the work on platform out to the distributed talent, which is the community that's out there, they know the rules. They know when they have to finish work by, they know when submissions are due by, and it just keeps the machine running. It keeps outputs coming in on time, which if you're doing that on time and you're predicting your own pace, well, then you can set the pace and stick to it.
It looks like we have run out of time. Really appreciate you taking these questions. And just as we wrap up, I wanted to thank our audience for joining us for this insightful dialogue, and wanted to highlight that we're going to continue to bring content to you around the importance of taking winning ideas and getting them to market. And so we have a webinar coming up on the 29th of November focused on techniques for ensuring that your ideas get funded. So please do join us for that webinar again on November 29th. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great day.